This is Caffeinated Risk, the monthly podcast for security professionals by security professionals, focused on the principles of enterprise security risk management, exploring technology and business management issues and how they relate to information security risk. Once a month, two self-proclaimed grumpy security guys bring you analysis, insights, and interviews with leading security risk professionals to learn how they work through a project, a program, or their careers using a risk-based approach to security. Now here are your hosts, Tim McCreet and Doug Leese.
One of the projects that I did in my master's was evaluating machine learning and AI-ish stuff. And they actually had cybercrime in there.
Oh, really?
And really vague topic, because like cybercrime could be anything from, fraud to stalking people. And I don't think we've quite got to click here to kill everyone, but I can see it around the corner.
Yeah. To be fair, if you hack healthcare connected devices, you can absolutely click to kill somebody if you are evil enough.
100%, absolutely. That's kind of where I was going. Is there are some, it's not just military. There definitely we have things in health.
Critical infrastructure, traffic lights, train signals, water treatment. Yeah. Lots of places you can go play with this one, right?
There's essentially nothing. Well, I mean, yes, there's the physical touching of people, but there's very little crime types that you can get in cyber that you can't also get in physical. Like the crossover it's not 100% complete, but it's so close to being complete that almost any crime you can think of can happen in the cyber environment. Thank goodness I didn't buy real estate in the metaverse yet, so I'm not going to be.
Yeah, that's probably a wise move. But yeah, when we look at this whole data analysis, and maybe in one sense that is the benefit of a cyber convergence, is that before, in the fully kinetic physical world, the law enforcement and the defense people, they really didn't have much to work with. Now with the data, it's interesting how all these fingerprints can be analyzed offline, elsewhere, by machines at scale, et cetera, to the point of we've narrowed it down to these three things to look at.
Yeah,
for sure. Like data to me is an absolute. I mean, data mining and gold mining. I mean, it's the same thing. You are able to see so much. A lot of what I'm doing in trying to simplify this risk-based approach can be so driven by the data that we now have. If only the security industry decided to properly look at it. Outside of police, but as an industry, if we were able to properly look at the impacts of what we're doing, we are a very insular people, and so none of us wants to share our data, and nobody wants to be the first person to share their data with the other people. But if we could all somehow harmoniously mine our data as an industry, all of those best practices that we all think about and talk about and say, well, this is how you protect from that. I mean, that data is all provable somewhere in a database, but it's all locked up somewhere.
Well, do you see that ever becoming a real, actually sharing that data? Do you see that happening on the next level? Because, I mean, you were our very first guest over almost 3 years ago now, which is kind of cool.
It's been a while,
And in that time, the journey you've taken, right, into the role that you have today and what your organization is doing, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But do you see this idea where data sharing eventually is going to be, I don't know, forced upon isn't the way I'd put it, but do you ever see that there's a potential for government to regulate part of that down the road?
Well, I think it depends on the kind of data and how far down the road you're looking.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I think we are getting to the point where there are enough people who are interested in the kinds of things that you can do with data that I think for certain a consortium, or if there were a agnostic group that could say, if you provide this anonymized data, because no, you don't even really need to have anybody's names associated with any of it. But if you could go to, just imagine the floor of a security trade show, and imagine all of the people who are selling products into organizations. So that's a set of data because they're billing systems and contract systems, and you know what people are selling. And then imagine collecting incident information from all of the customers that are implementing those. So, okay, you have these security systems and you've had these incidents, and some third party were able to collect that. And then you align it with publicly available data, like, and this is what the crime picture looks like where you are. All of those databases exist today. Can the government no, the government today is not in any position to force that. But if we as an industry truly wanted to take a risk-based approach to all of this, that is the data collection, the anonymized version of that based on areas and blocks and things like that. Yeah, who could push this? The insurance industry.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Who benefits from that information is the end user in understanding exactly which thing to apply to their risk. Which security control do you need to put which effect into place because of your industry, size, footprint, where your front door is located. It's going to take somebody far smarter than me in data science. I can see the picture.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, we all, I think, can see the picture of that. Some smart person or some smart robot eventually can put that together. And as AI gets better at pattern, all of that's pattern recognition. It's regression. It's not even, honestly, and I say it's not difficult data science as though I could do it myself, but it's not difficult data science. It just takes the doing and the investment and the will to power, right? And so I hope we get there one day. I hope that somebody has the impetus to do that study and that people would trust that entity enough to give their anonymized data to it. But it would have to be vendors, customers, manufacturers, and across the board, cyber, physical, and the impact of that is mind-boggling to me as a person who wants to protect. And then the other side of me that is terrified of privacy issues says, is that a good idea?
In one area, I have all of this, right?
Yeah.
The volume of events is mind-blowing. It is billions and billions a day now. And it all pretty much looks the same, and it's all pretty much benign except for the one time it isn't. And finding that one time is so difficult in that volume because the AI models tend to look for at least something in there. And the other thing I picked up is we need domain knowledge. We need people like you and Tim to look at that and go, well, that's great, but here's the other thing you got to look for. Now go find that in the data. This is how I know.
And that's sort of the conversation we were having on a small scale last week about this study, because the data scientists understood everything about data, but some of the results that they presented back to us, it was myself and another risk expert. We looked at it and we said, well, but that's not really pertinent to the topic. It's an interesting pattern, sure. But what I want to know is the driver, like there's outcome X, and I want to know the type of security incident that led to outcome X. If outcome X is, and whether outcome X is, well, we changed a policy or we changed a procedure or we spent more money on cyber or we did this or we did that. I think that the drivers of these things is critical. And you're right, you do need the domain expert. And what I also think, I've been reading a lot more lately about narrowing the AI studies so that instead of trying to make just a generalized expert, you can train them much faster in small areas. So if you have the risk expert AI with the appropriate model of training data and information, they can learn it a lot faster and they can get there a lot faster. And I think that also, if you have them segregated into areas of expertise, they're less likely to get confused by errata.
Right.
And so that's exciting to me as well for the security industry across the board. We're starting to see it now. People using Chat GPT-4, people using Bard to do these small projects. And that is where it's going to go. And as soon as people understand how efficient it can be and how speedy it can make them, you just need one person with enough money to fund it to find benefit. And then we're golden. We just need one person who says, yes, I will hire the data scientists and put the money in and see what happens.
Well, I mean, I wanted to ask though, do you think that there's a point in the maturity to the profession of security that almost like that partnership between the data science and the senior expertise, that you become that successful team? Or, I would love to see, I mean, this is just down the road, but the one person with both the data science background and the expertise in the field. That, I don't know if that unicorn will ever exist, but I can imagine how in demand that role would be, or that skill set would be, to understand the data and that whole experience within the realm of security.
Yeah, I think you need to send that sentence to all of the people who are currently considering majors in criminal justice and or data, and tell them, because I agree.
Yeah,
I agree with that. So I think the more we understand that AI Whisperer is going to be a legitimate job, and that these systems are going to need the partner to keep them in their rails, but that partner has to also know what they're talking about. And I do believe that would be an amazing future. If I were willing at this point in my life to go get a PhD, I would love to do that, because I just find it fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me would be maybe a post-retirement fun thing to do.
You need a better hobby is what you need, I think.
I do clearly need a better hobby. But I get so excited just talking about the potential of what I grasp in this space, that I think that future job of someone, and I do think the industry is going in a direction that can support that, because we have people coming up who are coming up through academia. They're coming into security from cyber and then getting into physical, as opposed to the other direction. And I think all of these, let's say 30 to 40-year-olds who have a fair chunk of career ahead of them, they were brought up in a digital system. They were brought up in a world where you look stuff up through a computer interface. And all of us Yellow Pages users are starting to move out.
You say that like it's a bad thing, right? Wow, we just got to find somebody who thinks the same way, and then that's how you retire early, folks.
Yeah, you hire them.
Really, all you listeners, that's how you retire early, right? So
I was going to say, you find 3 people that think like that and hire them.
Exactly.
Right? Because Bill Gates, the fastest way to get an MBA is to hire one.
Yeah.
But to Rachelle's point, but you need a lot of money, because anybody that smart already knows what market rate is. And so that is the other challenge I think we have to put in front of this, is if you're lining up half a dozen people and they each want at 200 and something a year, like, I need $2 million just for noodling and game playing and drawing on the board and a bunch of false starts.
Yeah.
That's a tough call on a quarterly basis, right?
Yeah. Fair.
Especially and let's be honest about where the security industry is, because if I am pharma, I know that one day paying $2 million for somebody to sit and noodle for a while, I have a very strong chance of that paying off.
Sure.
In the security industry, other than people who make security devices, security is not typically a profit center. So now we have to figure out how to partner that with an R&D. Like, where else is the benefit being brought forward? What can we do to get that so that we can have people spend that time, or we go into academia? And I think that's another key. Academia has the ability to do that, and if you get people with passion who are willing to put off making money for a few years, that's a space as well. Because I mean, what you're talking about is pure R&D. Who funds that in this space? People who where's the money to be made in I live in a capitalist society. Where's the money to be made? So it's an interesting question.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair, but does any of that apply now to where you're going in your space, Rachelle, with the next iteration of risk? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I kind of wanted to ask about where you're going now with where you and your team are heading. And to me, it's feeling like that next iteration, the next maturity point for risk. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of what I kept thinking, is that, wow, this is really cool where you wanted to go with it, right?
No, it does. I believe that we are closer than I expected to be at this point. And where I've gone, so ESRM, it's interesting. So at GSX this year, I'm going to have a panel, and I'm going to get some of the OG ESRM people on it. And it is
yes, I think I got my invite.
Yes,
I think I got my invite. So, yeah.
Yes, a decade retrospective. Oh. And I was like, a decade retrospective? What? But when I thought of it, honestly, my thoughts on the topic have changed significantly in the last 10 years. My interest in this in the beginning was very academic. I wanted to see how all of the models aligned. I wanted to explain and detail and build charts and graphs. And as I grew in this space and tried to explain things to people, I realized that I was overcomplicating it. My audience, some people got it immediately, but some people, I had to explain too much for what should have been a very simple concept. And I realized that it's actually very easy if you break it down into what is the importance of the thing you're protecting. What is it that you really, truly need to protect it from, not the whole world? And then what's the best way to do that? And if you can break it down that easily, that's all ESRM is at its heart. And I've definitely, those are my 3 questions. I think other people have now adopted those 3 questions. And hand to God, I don't know if I made them up. I may have read them somewhere and adopted them from someone else. I don't want to, I think I wrote them, but that doesn't make it true. So you see it and it resonates with people, and it resonates with people outside of security. And that, to me, that simplification, and the team that we're working at. So obviously I work at Allied Universal, and I was brought on from G4S when the acquisition happened to bring ESRM to how we do things, to how we make suggestions to our customers. And I have been lucky enough to partner with Paul Mercer of Hawksight, who I've known for quite some time. And we were doing an ESRM teaching session in Belgrade, Serbia. And we were just spending the day walking around Belgrade because we were off that afternoon. And we got to talking about how this shouldn't be hard. And he, with his company, Hawksight, is about automating as much of this process as possible. And we both got to talking about how we get frustrated at risk experts who say, well, you can't take the knowledge that I have and put it into a computer. And we're both like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. But it does take the willingness to put it down. And he had been working on it from one angle, and I had this other thought process and a tool that I had built at G4S. And I realized, I was like, wow, Paul, you have already built everything that I would build if I was a software builder, thanks for doing all that work. I would like to partner with your company. And so what's been going on in that space is very exciting with the semi-automation of the things that we've had great conversations about. How many assumptions can you put into a model and still have the model work? And then we test the model and we're like, okay, you can, as long as your end user knows that this is the assumption you made, it makes sense when a risk person runs the model and says, yes, that makes sense. That makes sense. We've done all of this modeling. And then GPT-4 came out. And the conversations that have been happening since. So let's say I get a customer and customer is big credit card company number 5, right? And their address is data center number 3. I, in my brain, have to say, well, what's the threat profile of big credit card company number 5? How much money do they make? What are their financials? Okay, where is data center number 3? What's the crime stats? And I have to do some research and I have to do that. But you know what an AI model can do? That in a second. I no longer have to assume things. I can say it's big credit card company and they are at this address, and it can tell me in a hot second based on, and it can search the dark web. It can do all of these things. And I haven't, today's AI cannot literally do that, but tomorrow's AI, I believe very strongly will. I think I will be able to give it the name of a company and the address of that company, and the data will be there, and it will automate so much of that process. And that to me is where ESRM is going, because it has to be for the people. Am I possibly putting myself out of a job? Yeah, I might be. Or I may be the AI whisperer, the AI wrangler, the shepherd who takes all of that output and says, okay, now I'm going to apply a human thought process to it and make sure that the gut is still there.
Yeah.
And but to me, I will go on about how excited I am about this forever.
That's okay. This is perfect, right? So, yeah.
You're absolutely preaching to the choir, and it's funny how you use the word semi-automated. We are now in a full court press on automate the boring stuff. So your exact point of I need to do a risk assessment. Well, could you get me the company profile, please? There's 18 things I normally get. Save me half an hour and just go get that stuff for me. And you know what? Go scour the news for the last 6 months and tell me anybody that's been doing stuff in here, because I really want to know what's going on now, because the last time I looked at this was 2 years ago. I need to know what's happening today, and I want to just look back the last 6 months. Boom. Those tools are amazing for that kind of stuff, and I keep saying just your job as the builder of this tool is get all of that stuff up where the human can now be fully informed and focus on that rather than the mechanics. But the other side of that is we're going to need the humans training in this semi-automated mode so that you can start to trust those models. And I think maybe where you guys are in more of the physical space, you're probably better positioned because we've got a lot more history on physical breach. You know, that goes back a couple thousand years, and there's good records on that stuff.
Yeah.
And you can see it, and mentally we can grasp it a little better. The 2D space of a computer world is very confusing to the human brain.
And it's interesting that you say how much history we have in the physical space, because that's, if we play forward that semi-automation, that's the other thing that we are trying to do right now, and would be magical if, as soon as we get over a little bit more of this data hump, is that question of what to do about it, because that's actually got quite a bit of solid anecdotal research behind it. So what my team at Allied is trying to do is, when we say how do I best protect it, to literally automate a set of suggestions on how to best protect it.
Yeah.
And because, again, we live in in a capitalist society with budgets and limits, how to most efficiently protect it. And I'm going to tie that back to what you said about automate the boring stuff. So I have a very unique position in the world because I work for a segment of a very large company. And the segment of our company that I work for is primarily responsible for the human aspect of security. It's what my group of the company is in charge of. But my role in that part of the organization is to bring more of the other types of security into that to make it the most impactful and efficient program as possible. Because we, as an organization that has all of the abilities across the board, don't want to, there's no one size fits all.
Correct.
There is no, oh, you have a problem, let me put a human officer there. There are things that human officers are absolutely necessary for. You can never humans will never leave security. But there are also things that technology is much better at. And we're starting to work on scoring, weighting, things where if you answer questions A, B, and C with answers X, Y, and Z, that we can say, well, it will be more efficient for you to have a human in this spot and a camera in this spot. And the perfect piece here is that the camera is so close to being smart enough to tell the human that a thing happened. Walking the floor at ISC just a couple of months ago, I was having conversations with people that I am so excited about because the answer to my questions when I was asking, can the analytics do this? Can the analytics do that? Was no. However, we are so close. I had a conversation with a person who was starting to build an app that the camera could tell restaurant management when customers were getting annoyed.
Oh, wow.
And that is so close to the analytic of I'm staring at a shelf confused about what I want to buy, or I'm staring at a shelf waiting to be able to put it in my pocket. We're so close. And that marriage of technology and human response is going to be amazing. And I am at the baby steps of that right now. I don't mean to imply that we're going that far, but what we're doing is very exciting in this space where, so Carrie Badel, who's the president of AUTS, and I had sat down for hours with him just to take information out of his brain. Carrie, when you ask this question, why? Why do you ask that? Why do you ask that? And he's like, oh, well, because this is a scenario. And what happened? I put all of that into a computer. And now I can ask the computer that instead of having to ask him that. And I don't even have to ask it because the questions are always already written down. And so somebody else can ask the question and the computer can give the answer. And both of the people who sort of have the knowledge in their head are out of that loop. And it's going, in my considered opinion, because it's my baby, going to change the industry once we get it over. I mean, I'm in test mode. I've been piloting it with people. The risk piece that I'm working on with Hawksight is 100%. It's out there. It's ready. We're doing good work with it. This efficiency conversation about which thing to apply and the weightings and how to do it. We're in alpha. We're doing it. We're asking for volunteers to participate in it. I've got great customers who are willing to take the time to do it. But is that not the end game of just being able to say, here's my problem. Can you give me a solution? And then an expert looks it over. Mm-hmm. And you're saving that time of the expert.
This session has been amazing because I think we covered ground that we haven't in the past. And I think we're setting a tone for where we want to go in the future. So I think this session has been great today. So thank you, Rachelle, for coming back to come back after so many years. It's been so cool. And to hear what you're doing, this has been awesome.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, you know me, I love these sort of high-level philosophical conversations about security, and it has come a long way since I was in a completely other state the first time we chatted.
Yeah,
we've all come a long way, but really, I always enjoy talking to you guys, and it's illuminating to me. This kind of thing allows, I think, people to crystallize their own thinking as as you say, this was not scripted. So I came in understanding that I was going to talk about where ESRM has been and where it's going. And we did, but in a completely different, random way than I expected, given that we just kind of started out talking about data and went from there.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome. And we'll try to get you on before 2 years.
yeah. And be a guest star.
Every 2 years, for sure, right?
Oh, awesome.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. This has been terrific. Thank you. Thanks for listening to the latest podcast from Caffeinated Risk. Make sure you visit our website, caffeinatedrisk.com, to stay up to date on what we've been working on. Our website has bios of our podcast guests, posts about topics we're passionate about, and even a library of reference material we find valuable in the work we do every day. And don't forget to subscribe to Caffeinated Risk on your favorite podcast service. This way, you'll be notified when we release our next podcast, and you can listen to our previous guests just in case you missed them. Thanks so much for listening to Caffeinated Risk.